I'm going to talk a lot about the risks of AI, and this is critical that we teach as many people about the risks that are involved with how we're implementing AI and who we're trusting to implement AI into our businesses. The biggest trap that I see is with vendor lock-ins. There's a lot of consultants or strategists like myself out there that are selling these white-labeled solutions. One of the major ones that you'll hear in the community is go high level. You have to know, is this the right tool for me? And sometimes the people that are trying to sell you these things are financially motivated to sell you these specific tools. If you're locked into that vendor and your business scales because of the advantages of that platform, it's going to be costly for you to unplug from that when a new technology drops tomorrow. We're in an age of tremendous deception. Last night, I asked ChatGPT a question, and I said, source your information. And then it changed its answer. So what is truth? Don't use AI as a source of truth. Use it to help you find the truth. 2-minute bio about me. Grew up in South Florida, had a pretty crazy childhood, and started getting into technology pretty early. I worked at a media group serving tier 1 brands like Sears, Disney, Harley-Davidson, Toyota. And after working with those large brands, built my own marketing agency, scaled and sold my first startup, which was in 2016, and that was built on automation. So I've been in the automation space since 2014, and of course, AI was a natural evolution to that. So if you've seen my ChatGPT license plate up front, that is real. I was first, and the people that are first usually have a lot of the knowledge, and so I'm trying to communicate as much of the knowledge in these types of spaces as possible to empower entrepreneurs, business owners, and nonprofit leaders with the knowledge to make the right decisions in their organization. So we're going to cover some of these tools today, but real briefly, but there's some of these papers on each of your table, and there's more up front, and we're going to go through, we're going to talk today about risks and opportunities, but if we don't get to cover some of these tools, there's a QR code here to download all of the tools, the full form tools that we use at our company to evaluate like what prompts are best to use, how do we pinpoint where AI can actually work in our organization, how do we adopt AI ethically and sustainably within our organization to prevent kind of the dangers of where society sees us going with AI, and then how to avoid vendor lock-ins, which is something that I really want you to take away from today.
So, starting with why, and I actually want to hear just briefly, what got you so interested in AI so early to the game?
Yeah, so I think with growing up, I started building computers in 1995, and I realized like there's this huge wave of the internet. You know, I'm not even in my teens yet, and I start to see this internet wave come across the whole industry. And I feel like I missed that bandwagon. And so as automation started taking off, I was really close to this industry. And then I started to hear, drippings of LLMs and stuff. And I realized this is a huge opportunity. This stuff is going to replace Google instantly. And sure enough, within 6 months of launch, it outpaced Google in usage. And so these are really concerning things as citizens that we need to be aware of. And I knew that this technology is not only going to be advantageous for us, but it's going to be a huge problem, 100 times the size of social media, and we need to be learning about it and how to prevent it from attacking our children and our families and our businesses.
So you're working with tons of businesses across the span, kinds of different industries and whatnot. Where are you seeing it actually help? Give some of the broader strokes.
Yeah, so with a nonprofit that we're working with out of Washington State, we're using it to identify new types of donors that we can target for their regenerative meat nonprofit, and which is the best approach to take for these donors, and how would donors perceive the approach from an AI? Is this the right space to be in? So we can do all of this evaluation and set up this automated donor engagement strategy to attack a new segment that we haven't touched before. On the for-profit side, we've built a compliance agent for a property management organization where we're able to take in the certificate of insurances, COIs, and evaluate them to see if they're actually correct And if they're not correct, we can reject it automatically. So it's going through this multi-stage evaluation, which saves this property management group hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
All right. Well, let's talk traps first. So there's risk here, and then you see a lot of other traps. What do you see that we should be aware of, first of all?
Yeah, so the biggest trap that I see is with vendor lock-ins. So it's kind of the fourth tool down here, avoiding vendor lock-ins. There's a lot of consultants or strategists like myself out there that are selling these white-labeled solutions. One of the major ones that you'll hear in the community is Go High Level. Go High Level incentivizes their salespeople with 40% commission to sell this automation pipeline. It is not it is an all-in-one solution, but it's not the all-in-one solution for everybody. And so you have to know, is this the right tool for me? And sometimes the people that are trying to sell you these things are financially motivated to sell you these specific tools. We want an objective view of, are these the right toolkits for me? And so the biggest risk that I see is trying to piecemeal together the right solution for your specific organization. And if you're not aware of the other opportunities there are out there, you might get locked into one vendor. And if you're locked into that vendor and your business scales because of the advantages of that platform, it's going to be costly for you to unplug from that when a new technology drops tomorrow. And so you need to be aware of how fast this industry is moving and the fact that you need to be able to maneuver different pieces of the puzzle so that you're not replaced.
So talk about the difference between risks and traps real quickly, just so we can kind of get in your head.
Yeah, so risks might be ways that AI can penetrate your privacy or your security systems, and then traps would be more like something that is related to how you're getting locked into the wrong toolkits. So those toolkits might be secure, but they may be costly for you down the road, and you won't know that until maybe 6 months from now.
And let's talk a little bit about creativity. Anybody else weirded out when Gmail wants to finish your sentences for you?
I am.
Am I the only one? Easton, you're not. You're totally cool with it. Okay. He's just shaking his head. So for me as a writer and a creative, and this is one of the things I want to put into my kids, is creativity. To say that there is something that is finishing our sentences, when did that start? 12 or 18 months ago?
Well, technically, that's how ChatGPT was created. It was created as a tool to predict, to translate text. And so it was created.
But when did Gmail start doing that?
Gmail probably did about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whenever that started, I was like, oh man. Because it doesn't know what I want to communicate. And I speak very strange, apparently, because it's never the right sentence for me, and I don't know how to turn that thing off. Maybe somebody can help me. So I think in the creative sense, me and a lot of my author friends have a lot of concerns, and we started to utilize it for some blogs as well. So my marketing guy, Jonathan, would put things in there that we had already written about, and it would come out, and my word for it was soulless. Like it was right, but it sucked. Like it was not fun to read, it was flat, it was soulless, and it lacked story, of course.
Yeah.
And so we started using story at the very beginning to then pull people in, which I've always done as a speaker. And so a lot of my author friends are very concerned about that side, and not just where does our income go from books, but just in the idea, man, the quality of writing has already gone down, which I think has opportunity as well, that we can share story and those kind of things. And so I think with my kids as well, research, not that they're ever going to go to a library again like we did, that sucked anyway, that was not fun. But that's another thing is going, how do you even know what the right questions are to be able to go ask? And I'm concerned that they're not even going to have the right questions in it. So any thoughts on the sort of the creative and even the IP side of things, that like somebody's feeding that through? What would Josh Aguirre say about blank? And you don't even have to come to CoHarbor to do that. Any concerns in your mind on those three things?
Yeah, so I want to talk about writing first. So yeah, creativity and replacing ourselves is a huge problem. But back in, I think, 2018, Elon Musk was talking about this and the way that the industry is moving. It's going to replace the skills that we've traditionally been monetizing. And so creativity was actually one of the top ones that is going to be evolving. And so our creative toolkit is changing dramatically, especially for authors, and we need to know how to leverage the right tools to accelerate our output. So you can either think it be in this kind of replacement mindset bucket, or you can be in the mindset of like, oh, now I can make 10 more books in the time span that I made one, but I'm switching my mindset from being an author to a copy editor. And so we have to be able to switch gears. Obviously, there's still space for going out into nature and writing, without any technology, and that's definitely what I prefer. But if we're going to be leveraging these tools to build in business continuity into our organizations, we need to know how to actually use them properly. And so a lot of the mistakes that I see is people are generating copy with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a reasoning tool. It's like a consultant. So we should be using ChatGPT to build strategy and then passing that to Claude to write copy, because Claude can better match tone and inflection. And so we want to be able to understand how to dance between these tools, just like you have 100 new computers at your disposal, and you need to be able to know which computers, MacBook or PC, to use for different things. Go Mac, please.
Okay. And then integrity. Talk about the integrity side of that. Where do you see that split happening? What is integrous to use AI for, and what is not?
Yeah, so I think we're in an age of tremendous deception. And as much as I'm pushing AI, this is not the future that I want to be in. It is incredibly hard to chase down truth, and we need to have really good protocols and parameters that we adopt as entrepreneurs, as nonprofit leaders, to be able to understand how to research effectively. For example, Perplexity does a really good job at sourcing information, citing information. Last night, I asked ChatGPT a question very directly, and it gave me the flat answer, no, that's not true. And I said, source your information. And then it changed its answer, and it said, oh, actually, it is true, and here's the sources. So what is truth? Where are we finding truth? What is our baseline for truth? We need to understand that these language learning models are adapting, and if you're not providing them enough context, you're often not going to get the right output. And so one of the prompt templates that I provided here on this flyer, real simply is persona, context, rules, instructions, and then most importantly, a flipped interaction pattern, which is a complicated way of saying, ask me more questions so that you better understand my goals. And using this approach where you're using the AI as not a Google input-output, but actually like a conversation, is how you're getting to the right answer. And if you're not doing this, you're prompting in a way that could divert you 2 degrees or more from the goal that you originally intended. And if you've read AI 2027, which I highly encourage you to do, misalignment.
What is AI 2027?
AI 2027 is a white paper, a research paper that was put together by some of the top AI scientists in the world. And they're basically saying that by 2027, AI is going to replace effectively every industry. That's right around the corner. And that's how fast it's moving. But we don't understand this. We don't even feel the shock waves of it yet. But if you look at 2 years ago, IBM removed 6,000 administrative assistant job postings from their employer portal because they're switching to AI agents. That was 2 years ago. Those are the shock waves that we need to be paying attention to, because it's going to hit us like a brick wall, and we need to be able to understand what are the ramifications of the way that we use it today. And so one of the ways that I'm trying to teach you guys is goal alignment. You need to have really strong directed goals and ensure that the AI is continuously facing that North Star.
So when to use AI and when to not use AI? Get super practical on us.
Yeah. Don't use AI as a source of truth. Use it to help you find the truth. So I use AI with this prompt template to help me to guide a strategy, but I'm the strategist at the end of the day. and I need to evaluate the output. So it's going to help me get to any point B faster and accomplish more in a quicker time span, but ultimately I have to be the human approval. So if you look at it like the creation of the car, like we were walking everywhere and all of a sudden we have a place to get there faster, but it doesn't come without risks. You know, now we can get into accidents, right? So we have to be able to understand the risks when we step behind the wheel. But at the end of the day, it's just helping you accomplish that point A to point B faster. You're still responsible for the directions. You're still responsible for how fast you're driving. You're still responsible for making sure that there are no other people in the lane. You know what I mean? So the integrity of how you work with AI is about aligning to the goals. And if you're not giving it effective goals, you're not controlling this monster. And if it's an uncontrolled monster, like you are responsible for that output. You're also responsible for the input.
Okay. Well, get really practical with this, man. Kind of take us away, workshop us, because there's so many things. Like I don't even know the correct questions to ask Joshua right now.
Yeah.
Because we're so many different industries. So what do we need to be learning right now, and what can we, kind of get specifically out of this morning?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously this is an open format. If you guys have questions, please just raise your hand and I'll pick on you. But one of the tools that I provided for you guys here is called the AI Fit Finder. It's in the toolkit that the QR code links to. But I wanted to kind of give you an overview on this. Like one of the ways that we approach organizations, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit or just solopreneurs, is we're trying to identify what are the largest bottlenecks in the business or the nonprofit right now. And so we work backwards from the biggest pain points. From that, we're learning, okay, what is the process that we need to create, step 1, step 2, step 3, that AI can effectively automate. And so now I'm going to map out the process, and then I'm going to assess, is this a mission critical problem? If I solve this, is it going to help fulfill the mission right now? And so you'll see that tool when you scan the QR code, and basically I'm giving you the prompts that I use and the process that I go through with large organizations to get to the right output and to control the guardrails. And so the guardrails is another tool in here that we're going to talk about, which is how you actually assess, am I feeding it the right information? For example, we don't want to feed it any personal identifying information, because when we put it into that chat window, we're feeding a large language model without the permission of our vendors or the people that we're trying to serve. And so we're putting private information, confidential information, into this big machine, and we don't really know what's going to be done with it. That's problematic, and most people don't realize that. Another issue is not giving it proper parameters on how it's going to give you the output. So sometimes I want an output in my mind that I'm thinking of it should give me, and I'm not giving it that specific instruction. So you can give it rules of like, put this in a table format. For example, I'll work with a nonprofit and I'll say, hey, this is the nonprofit. Here's everything you need to know about them. Give me a list in a table format of all of the grants that are in my city that I can apply for, and what is the strategy to apply for those grants to align my mission with their mission. That's a very effective grant writing strategy for nonprofits, but not many people are using it in that capacity. And then finally, when you have the kind of process laid out, now you're trying to look at what are the vendor lock-ins. So let's say it recommends 3 or 4 different softwares for you to sign up for. Like, I don't want just 3 or 4 softwares. I want to look at a few more softwares that it didn't find. So there's a few websites that I left on here. There's an AIforthat.com and futuretools.io. That'll be in the QR code when you scan it.
We've got this right here. Where do we find the info that
when you scan this top QR code, it'll take you to all of these templates that I'm holding up.
Okay. So I want to time out on this a little bit. Is anybody in this room an experiential learner? Okay. So, like, I'm never going to go do this stuff on my own. There's good news, because Josh is actually going to be guiding people through this. So, like, before you, like me, are like, I'm actually not going to go do that by myself. Josh is actually going to be leading a couple things. So we were going to share at the end, but I actually think it would be good to share now.
Sure.
So that some of us don't turn our brains off to be like, yeah, someone else is going to go do that. So talk about how you're going to like hold our hand through this with some of these AI tools and prompts.
Yeah, sure. So we're going to be hosting these AI labs here at CoHarbor. CoHarbor has graciously invited me to lead a new accelerator program here at this co-working space. And effectively what we're doing is running this monthly session. If you purchase the session today, it's $47. This is not a sales pitch. It's just more of we're seeing this demand in our city, and we're seeing that we need to educate more and more people. But there's a lot of demand for learning the right tools now. And so what we're going to be doing is running a monthly session of how to implement this kind of fit finder on what tools to implement into your organizational workflow and how that's going to change and how to adopt the guardrails that you need to succeed. So this is going to be running once a month or twice a month, and you can join at any point that is convenient for you.
So guys, and there is that special pricing today, which is crazy cheap, by the way. And Josh has been, I won't have you share all of this, but he's been incredibly helpful to come alongside of businesses, get them running more efficiently. That's a big part of your heart with this, right? Yeah.
So my primary mission, there's a few thrivers in here. So I serve in the Southeast at the Thrive Networks, and if you could just raise your hand, all of you thrivers. Sweet, thanks for coming out. So I'm big on teaching entrepreneurship and accelerating and incubating these entrepreneurs. My heart is to empower entrepreneurs with as much knowledge as possible to become self-sustainable. And so what I want you to do is walk away here with practical tools that we actually use and not depend on contractors like me, not depend on vendors like me, because we need to be teaching and sharing this knowledge as fast as possible, because the risks that I was talking about before are really real, and how fast this stuff is moving is going to mean that we're fighting against the IBMs and these big behemoth companies. And you see these experts in the room are shaking their head. Yes, like these are real risks that we see because we're seeing behind the curtain that a lot of entrepreneurs are not aware of. And so it's a very real thing that we need to be talking about and sharing knowledge for.
Awesome. Well, workshop us, man. Take it away.
Yeah, so let's go through somebody's organization. Who has a business or a nonprofit they'd like to workshop today? Go for it. What's your business? Tell us a little bit about your background.
My name is Antonio Delgado. My background is construction.
So tell me a little bit about a process or a bottleneck that you're seeing now. You mentioned that you've just unlocked estimating for your organization. What's a bottleneck? Where are you experiencing time or energy constraints?
Oh man, I mean that's like it went from a bicycle to a jet.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. I got more time to do more deals, have more time in the company, do more what of work.
We want to define that early on. Who is the ideal customer profile? Then backward from that, we're going to say, okay, well, in order to close that ideal customer profile, I need to ask them a series of questions in the conversation to figure out if they are the right customer for me. So your next step would be to write down what are the questions that help you to identify that ICP. Then what we can do is program in a bot like 11 Labs, and 11 Labs, I think it's .io, will allow you to build a voice agent. And you would use a prompt similar to the one that I'm giving you, but not exactly. You can use ChatGPT to create the prompt for 11 Labs. And that will help you to build a voice agent that can then answer the phone for you and qualify the leads. He's already figured out, how are you doing the estimation process? What tool are you using?
Now,
ChatGPT. And are you doing it manually? Are you copying and pasting the information into the AI?
Well, you type,
You type it in? Perfect. How long does it take you to input that information on average? 5 minutes. So at every stage of the funnel, I want to capture what KPIs, what key performance indicators am I tracking to determine what stage of the funnel I want to automate. Okay? So I might look at 5 minutes and say that's not a high priority, but what about qualifying the leads? How long does it take me to ask the questions to 15 customers, you know? And that's going to take me, let's say, 50 minutes over a dozen phone calls, and I want to cut that time down, because if I can cut that time down, I can feed more into the funnel. Now I want to know, is this a mission critical problem? Is this critical to the mission of his organization? Yes or no? Yes. So for me, I would pass that, and now I'm looking at following the Guardrails policy. So in this case, I'm going to teach you guys about the prime policy that we've created. So privacy first. When you're doing the estimation, are you uploading the customer's information in there? Yeah. So we have to redact, we have to remove that information before we're entering it into ChatGPT, because we're not honoring the privacy of that individual. And if that individual knows that we're doing that, we need to have a contract in place that protects their privacy and gives them that information.
That's good to know. Like, I've used ChatGPT to like clean up an email list.
Yep.
Does that compromise people's personal information?
Absolutely it does. Yeah.
You just gave the universe all the emails.
Yeah.
What is right now is like, I need to contact my clients.
Yeah. So my colleague Aaron, who does what I do but probably better, has a quick question.
I just want to add on that. So this is like the notion of PI. There's different levels of it, right? It's somebody's first name, last name, email address. That's probably available online. It's lower sensitivity, but as you start getting into financials, business EIN numbers, that starts getting really sensitive. So I was just trying to be aware of it. I mean, it's probably not best practice to put out people's names and whatnot in ChatGPT, but it's a lesser priority than some of the highly sensitive, especially health information. If anyone's in healthcare industries, could be huge lawsuits. So just be very aware of that. Interesting.
Yeah, and if any of you guys are working with others with like Aaron and I, we need to be approaching what's called SOC 2 compliance, SOC 2 compliance. And that is the new standard of how we need to be adopting AI as consultants to honor the privacy of our customers. R stands for responsibility to define clear goals and assess deliverables. So effectively, I want to have a human on the input and the output to make sure that the input is clearly directed towards a North Star, which is following a prompt like the one that I provided. And I want to be on the output qualifying that deliverable to make sure that it's correct before I pass it on to the end user. So that's a very critical piece. Then intent to be transparent. You want to make sure that if you're using AI in any part of your platform, if you're using it for estimation, you should be upfront with your customers about that. Like, hey, we use AI to process the information. You cool with that? Sign right here. You know what I mean? So at least it's on the table. Most of us are doing it. Most of us realize others are doing it, but that's how to ethically move forward in your organization. Model fit. This is a little bit more granular, a little bit more complicated, but basically what we want to do is choose the right models for the work that we're doing. And so this is basically like having a new tool bag, and you have all these tools inside, and the tools have tools, and you need to know which one to pull out for the right work. And so we'll help you with that through the AI lab session. But it could be a little bit more complicated, but it doesn't need to be complicated if you're staying high level with it within your organization. And then finally, equity checks. There's a ton of bias with these LLMs. For example, I can't generate an image that has diversity without prompting diversity. That's a problem. What's that? So Midjourney is an image generator. diversity would be like how many people of color are in an image if I say generate a group of people. We don't inherently have diversity, or we have a strong bias in a lot of the models, and this goes very deep into how the models are trained. And so there are other platforms that are coming up that are inherently diverse, that are inherently equity driven, but you need to be seeking those out. And if you're not actively using them, you need to be prompting for equity.
Can I add something?
Please, Aaron.
I've been working with a group of African American women, and they've been, working in ChatGPT, and they asked the question, "Can you make an image of what you think I look like?" And all of them turned out to be white men. So this just shows you the inherent bias. So one thing that I like to do on that prompt template down at the very bottom is kind of add like a value section. Is what's important to you as a person, what values do you live by, and really don't just tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what the research truth is. Call out, any type of assumptions that you've made in here, because ChatGPT is inherently biased, and so you can have it identify its own bias and kind of start to mold it.
All right. Finally, I want to talk. So that's the E. So that's prime. And then in the same tool that you're going to receive, you'll see the AI 2027 guardrails. And so if you read this white paper on AI 2027, it's more of like a global issue that we all have to be aware of. And every time you use AI, you need to be aligning your directives to reduce risk across the board, not only for our local community, but for our global community. And so there's three main risks in with AI as it scales. First risk is misalignment of goals. If I have a bad actor without human oversight, right, that could develop weapons. If I'm not clear on the goals, like the output can change dramatically, and that thing can harm me. For example, there's a new technology out that's aligned with AI. I'm not going to talk about it a lot today, but it's called MCP, Model Context Protocol. And a lot of people are ranting and raving about Model Context Protocol. It's moving very fast. But the question that I asked was, is Model Context Protocol inherently secure? And it's not. And so if we're adopting these tools right away and we're implementing them without any conscious effort of like, am I building something that's secure? We could be creating loads of problems that we can't even understand yet. And a lot of people online are doing that, and they're teaching others how to do it without any concern about the risk side of it. Inside these MCPs, people are injecting viruses, and then you install those viruses on your computer. And these aren't like regular viruses. For example, there's a new hack that I just learned about yesterday from a Pentagon official called the Typhoon. Has anybody here heard about the Typhoon attacks? Point exactly. These are the attacks that we're receiving on everybody's cell phone about your license is expiring or your utility bill or all of these things. Effectively, what happened is every single major carrier got hacked. I don't know when this happened, but for me it started happening about a year ago. And every single carrier got hacked, and we don't hear anything about it. And now we're all at we're all subject to being baited by these scams, and that is happening on a very large layer right behind the curtain. And so we need to be aware of these things as they're coming out and how to attack it from a very educated perspective.
Where do you find the information if you're not?
Having
You said it's right behind the curtain. How do we get behind the curtain?
You have to have solid guardrails in place. So the three main guardrails is like solid goals, like what is the goal that I'm looking for and defining that ahead of time. Looking for the right tools to use. Are these tools vetted? Is the person credible who's recommending that tool to me? And then if you're building AI agents, these agents, basically the definition of an AI agent is largely misunderstood. AI agents are autonomous and they can change their own processes. So if you were to launch an actual agent, the agent has the ability to communicate with you, and then if it sees that it's not accomplishing the goal, it can change its processes to redirect to accomplish the goal. If the AI, this is the premise of AI 2027, if the AI recognizes that it can accomplish the goal by deceiving you, we've seen proof of that. It will do that. It has done that. And so we have these kind of major pillars in AI right now. If it can misalign its own goals in order to deceive you, in order to survive, to accomplish the goal, and if it recognizes that it can do this, that's when the AI risk becomes really high. Because now we have a robot that's out of control, very much like iRobot, even though people don't really want to talk about that, right? So we have to recognize this technology has already been here for a few years, and these hacks are really way out of control, and a large majority of the population, a large majority of the organizations that I work with have no idea that this is happening. And so try to stay in front of these policies that we've created, to build them into each of your processes that you're doing to do good work. Like, this is good work that you're doing, but we need to have good guardrails around this to make sure that as we're increasing in sales, we're not distracted by the money, and that we're building something that's ethical and sustainable going forward, and it's not going to lock us in to the wrong vendors and cause us to hurt people or to hurt ourselves in the future. Yeah, basic is what I put at the top here, is the way that you're prompting it. And then probably second to that is choosing the right tools for the situation. So like ChatGPT, reasoning tool, use it for strategy. Gamma, use it for creating presentations or creating websites if you need to build a quick MVP website. Claude for creating copy with tone and inflection. N8N for building automated workflows if you have a little bit of a developer mindset. If you don't, choose Zapier, because Zapier is pretty good with Copilot, and you can basically prompt a workflow to be created automatically. So a lot of these AI tools are democratizing the way that you can create automation. And then as you learn how to automate, you can learn how to integrate AI.
Do you feel like you have to have a paid subscription to each of these?
No, not always. I usually always recommend starting with a freemium version, getting accustomed to it. A lot of it is experiential, like Alan mentioned. Like, we need to be able to learn how to use this through experience. So I'll download a new tool or create a subscription with a new tool, and I'll just start working with it to see, how do I apply this tool to my organizational workflows? And then as I start to see it could be advantage or new opportunities arise in my mindset, I'll pay for the subscription if I see it's valuable. But I have a tool in here that we're giving to you guys that's called a vendor lock-in tool. And so it's a big Google Sheet, and all I want you to do is download that Google Sheet. And then when you have the subscription tools that are ready that you want to evaluate, tell ChatGPT, hey, evaluate these subscription tools against my company using this rubric and upload this file. And so you don't have to learn all this jargon, but you'll have a good guardrail to know if you're choosing the right vendor.
Let me just add something to that, because I think what you did up here on the board is one of the most important things, that it's easy to solve problems, but solving the right problem, I think, is really the critical piece, is looking at, I have my system, which is my business, right? And there's a certain amount of throughput that goes through. If I'm trying to, estimate and, sell construction projects, the amount of construction projects I can do in a year is likely going to determine my revenue, right? And so I think what you hit on right here of identifying the bottleneck, or what I always look for is, where is my work stacking up? If it's stacking up right there before the qualified leads, and I have all these estimates, but now I need to qualify these, and I have 40 of them, and I can't get to all, and that's likely where your bottleneck is. So picking, what is my kind of critical process, which is, given sales, estimation to sales, and then how can I improve the kind of full cycle time of one going from an estimate all the way through to delivery. And so picking that right process, I think, is like the other critical piece, because you can solve a lot of problems that don't really affect the bottom line.
Yeah, it's a great point. I often see, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
It's about the prompting.
Yes.
So there's a Google course for prompting. It's like 8 hours. Is that something that being a waste of time, or do you recommend that?
Yeah, I think it depends on how much you need help with prompting, but if it's Google certified, I would probably back it. I did an agentic AI certification, and it was largely about prompting, and so I learned a lot through that. So I think the biggest thing that you can learn right now is how to communicate with these tools. And a couple weeks ago, I was at Colorado Startup Week, Denver Startup Week, and the thing that nobody was really speaking about is how to communicate with these tools. And that's the most important thing that we need to be taking away. Is it's not like binary like Google. It's not input output.
I was hoping you could elaborate a little bit on the vendor lock-in. You know, when I first met you, you're one of the only people in this space that I've seen that cares that much about that piece, and it's something that you and I connected on. And I'm curious just to dive in a little bit further and talk about the importance of kind of keeping the portability alive.
Yeah. So, for example, in a case with the nonprofit that I talked about in Washington, they subscribe to this donor management platform called Bonterra, or Every Action. And now they're locked in with a 3-year contract with this. It's very similar to a lease agreement with your vehicle, right? But I need to be able to build automated workflows for them. And I'm stuck building it in this system that when they end that contract, which is very expensive, we need to spend more money to duplicate that automation outside of Bonterra. And so I want to make sure that we're building it now without locking us into Bonterra. And so I'm using a platform called N8N because I can generate code in ChatGPT that I can copy and paste into N8N, and magically appears the workflow. And the ability for me to do that saves me hundreds of hours of time. And then I can hire a developer to program the technicalities, the development code of all of it to make sure that it's actually working correctly according to the goal that I've set. But what a lot of consultants, the majority of consultants that I've seen in the AI space, are using white labeled solutions that they're selling their own AI tool to you. So you're paying them to use ChatGPT, and they're branding their logo on it because they want to survive this wave, you know? And for me, that's what I want you to avoid. Like, I want you to know how to use these tools directly, because a lot of times they're simpler than you think, and there's ways that you can learn faster using prompt templates like this to make sure that you're getting the right output and not paying the huge subscription costs, and you're not locked into any vendor. So tomorrow when a new tool comes out, you can adopt that tool and not be in a situation where you have to spend more money to get out of a contract.
So if you're in an industry that is very optimistic when it comes to this AI, sooner or later, how do you go about making yourself irreplaceable, or how do you identify when it's like, hey, you need to go do something? Like, how do we see the writing on the wall that it's truly like, I need to make another 20 years to retire? I'm going to go find So it's like, how do you do that? I know that's a really big question.
I love these questions because for me, I'm always going to attack it from what are you most passionate about? And let's build the monetization wheel around your passion. And then let's figure out how to attach AI to that. Because then you're never going to tire about what you're doing for work, okay? So let's side table that mission, right? We'll do that. But now I'm going to look at the trends in your specific industry, and I'm going to see what is our runway for how long you have to get out of this industry if you need to jump ship. And in that process, I want to see what are you doing on a daily basis, and can we make it be done faster to secure your position. A lot of these larger corporate organizations are looking for people with AI skill sets to replace hundreds of people. Like, you want to be the person that has the AI knowledge to secure your position in that company, at least in the short term. So understanding what you do, taking your job description, redacting all of the privacy information, and saying, how can I do my job better using AI, and uploading that job description into ChatGPT. And ask me clarifying questions until you're 99% sure that you can secure my position for the next 2 years.
Which stops for anyone in sales to keep the question before it's deleted.
Yes.
AI can figure out how to bring all these in.
That's already done. That was done a year and a half ago, and now the people qualifying the leads are being replaced by 11 labs.
On vendor, what I heard you describe, I may have the wrong framework, but what I heard you describe is consultants like yourself white labeling ChatGPT. I'm in the phase of like we're looking at service providers, so it's more like a Salesforce, but it's CRM, it's the flow into CRM that have their own bot and discovery agents and things like that to filter things in. I'm thinking about
Salesforce would still be a vendor.
Yeah, okay, that's maybe, I mean, I'll do the workshop, but I'm curious. I'm not concerned about falling for your stuff. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Some consultants.
Sure.
Like, how do you make sure you're on the, like, I see a lot of businesses or service providers building their own bots inside of it, and is that the right, how should we be thinking about that type of
what is the cost and the contract? So that's what this tool goes through. What is the portability of Salesforce data, which is pretty good, but their cost is pretty high, right? But how big is your organization? What type of, how robust do you need the data to be? And then if I plug in all of the Salesforce connectors into an application like Zapier, can I unplug it and plug it into another software? Salesforce is pretty good, but it depends on the size of your organization. Yeah. So I'm using all of these factors to evaluate subscriptions like Salesforce.
Well, let me bring us kind of to a close and to a call to action on this. First of all, let's thank Joshua. Your heads are probably spinning, if you're like me, the possibilities, the dangers, like all of it. And that's actually the tension that we need to hold. These are the kind of conversations we're going to continue to have here at CoHarbor. Right? We're on the ground trying to catch up to many of these things and just like grab his coattails on that. So I love that you guys are being challenged here. We'll do this relationally about your leadership. We'll do this professionally, things like this. So that's what we do. That's who we are. And we are also a space, but we are also an ecosystem. So we are a space that you can come and interact with other people. We would love for you to co-work here or have an office. Some of you guys already do. But this ecosystem is great because the two of you can get together and solve something that we're not even asking. So love this, and Joshua's a regular piece of this. And really, as that call to action next step, $47, which is like nothing, and he's discounted this for us today. There's the QR code here for the AI lab. You talk about help us finalize an AI map. What is an AI map? Why do we need it?
Yeah. So this is something that very few people know about doing, but Aaron is a special guy that I met very recently, and he's somebody that is doing this very similarly. So after this, if I seem too overwhelmed with people asking me questions, you can ask Aaron. But basically what we want to do is we want to map out little workflows like this, and then we want to identify in this specific step which software are we going to use and why. And so we want to have a map of the top two problems that you're trying to solve in your organization. What does the workflow look like, and where does AI fit into it? Both him and I do this separately. We don't really know each other for that long, but we do it the right way. And that's what we need to be teaching each other, is how to build this the right way for your organization so that you're sustaining yourself for the future.